I'm Brian Van from SportBikeTrackHere.com, and today we're going to install driven Smog block-off plates on our 2013 STG project bike. There's a couple reasons that you need to put these on. Reason one is by eliminating that air management system, it'll stop the burping, spitting, and farting on decel, right? It'll stop that. And the other thing it does too is to have dyno work done or to use the self-mapping feature like we have with our Pizzazz unit on this bike. You need to have that removed to get good, clean air-fuel mixture readings. Those are the reasons that we want to do it. It'll also shed a little bit more weight off this big, giant motorcycle. What do we need to do to facilitate this? The fuel tank needs to come off. In order to get the tank off this bike, we've got to get the tail back, right? Once we've got the fuel tank off, then we need to remove the airbox, both the upper and the lower airbox. Once you've done that, you're going to have full access to that air management system. From there, it's a pretty easy job. So, difficulty of task, if you're able to strip your motorcycle down all the way to the throttle bodies, right? Removing the airbox, both upper and lower, you're going to be good to go with this project. It's really not that hard. When we come back, I'll have the gas tank off, the tail slid back, and we'll begin to disassemble the airbox. Okay, the tail and the fuel tank are off. Now you can see here's my Pizzazz USB cable that I use to engage the self-mapping feature when I'm at the track, which is what we're looking to do again this weekend, and that's one of the reasons I want to hurry up and get these block-off plates on. Now we need to remove the airbox, both upper and lower, to gain access to those block-off plates. Got a fuel hose here, electrical connector here, ton of screws. We'll remove the upper airbox first, and then that'll allow us to get to the lower portion of the airbox where we're able to loosen up the Allen screws that actually attach it to the throttle bodies. Okay, upper airbox is removed. That's really pretty easy. The lower airbox on this one, also not too difficult. There are two hidden fasteners, right? They're 5mm Allens. The hidden fasteners can be exposed by moving these upper velocity stacks forward, all right? You move them forward a bit, you're able to get the Allen T-handle onto that lower fastener and loosen it up. The good news is these fasteners on this particular motorcycle, they're all captive inside the airbox, right? So you don't have to worry about losing these, dropping them down the throttle bodies and anything like that. They're all captive, which makes the job just a little bit easier. Here are those hidden ones right here. You lift this upper velocity stack like so, and you'll find the two hidden fasteners. There's one on the right side of the motorcycle and then one on the left as well. Get those loosened up. We've got one more fastener right here. There it is. We have an emission hose back here. Let's slide that down. Now we're able to expose this other emission hose here. It's actually going to be capped off now. We're going to cap off that emission hose that I just removed right here on the right side of the lower airbox. Now, you get a nice good close-up here, Josh. You can get a good look at exactly what we have happening here inside the frame of this bike. It's pretty tight. They're wedging a lot of stuff in here. We got a big 1000cc motor, right? Got all of our air ducts here. The ram air ducts come into this collector, which in turn forces it into the airbox. We need to get this collector here out of the way. Got two rubber ducts that are both slid inside of this collector. Go ahead and distort that a little bit. Let's get this connector here unplugged as well. Rotate this out of the way. And we get that collector out of the way. Now, hopefully you can get a good close look at what we are going to be removing. This is our air injection assembly. We've got the solenoid here, right? We have all of the tubing that goes along with it, and then of course the two plates that rest on top of the valve cover. What we're going to do here is we're going to loosen the fasteners on top of the cover, right? Remove both of those, and we're going to have to take this intake hose, the one that hooks to the actual airbox, we're going to have to remove that so we're able to actually pull the valve assembly out. Let's go ahead and release this clamp like so. Grab a pair of pliers, disengage this clamp here on that inlet hose. Go ahead and slide that off. And now let's look for the connector. Connector is right over here. And expose that like so. Okay, this stubby 3/8 ratchet, right, with a 5mm Allen socket is going to fit in here nicely to remove these air injection plates. The driven kit comes with some instructions. Obviously, we're going to take a look at that. We're going to read those because it's going to let us know what we need to reuse and what is going to be replaced and or discarded. When we come back, right, we'll have both of these plates off. This is really, once you get down in here and have a look at it, it's pretty self-explanatory, okay? You've got the two fasteners, one on each plate. Underneath that, you're going to have a valve assembly. Pretty simple. We'll give you a close-up look at it when we come back. Okay, here it is. Here is that air injection assembly, right? Disconnected the connector. There's a little bit of weight to it, not a ton, but nevertheless, the main reason we're removing this, it's performance-based, okay? A little bit of weight savings, but primarily performance-based. The covers, right, that we're going to install are really pretty basic. You're going to notice there is a cutout right here. There is kind of a button that is on the top of the valve cover here. On the Yamaha, you need to make sure that that raised portion goes inside this cutout. Really simple, right? You're going to see it right away when you open it up. Let's try and roll this back. I don't know how close my brother can get here with the camera, but this is 'cause it's really kind of lean forward a bit. There's some valves in place. You're going to leave all that stuff in there. All we're doing is replacing just the cover. There was some Loctite on these fasteners, right? You'll find that they do run in there kind of hard and they run out kind of hard. You can put some more Loctite on if you choose. Just use like a nice blue would be just fine, or you can run them in on your own. Just make sure they're tight, because that Loctite that's there, it's still going to be kind of activated. It makes the threads kind of tough. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run these down now on both sides, and then we're going to begin reassembling the airbox. Remember, we're going to plug off one spot on this lower airbox, right? And it's going to be the intake for that hose, right? Remember that intake hose that went to the air valve assembly? We're going to go ahead and plug that off, and they supply a nice rubber plug like so. I'm actually going to trim that down just a little bit, right? And then put a clamp on it, and we'll be good to go. When we come back, we're going to begin tightening up the lower airbox assembly. Okay, I've got the collector in for the ram air ducts. That's all hooked up. My plates are on. Right, we are ready now. Let's double check before we go ahead and put the airbox on. Let's make sure we've got all of our connectors plugged in. Do that. Look down in your throttle bodies. Let's make sure we don't have any debris down there. That's very, very key. Make sure that area is clean. And we're going to check that again after we put the lower airbox on. I'd like to show you the area that we plugged off. Right, I used that plug supplied by Driven. I used a little bit of safety wire in lieu of a clamp, a little bit lighter. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall our lower airbox assembly. Pretty easy install here. Now we've got the fasteners. There's the collector slides right in there. We've got those two hidden fasteners. Make sure you do not forget those. Every bike is going to be a little bit different when it comes to this, right? Every airbox is different. You know, my R6 is significantly different than the R1. So just be aware that this is just a guide. I mean, this isn't, you know, the end-all be-all gospel of, you know, air injection plate install videos, but this is going to give you a good idea of what this project really entails. So you can decide whether or not you want to tackle it realistically, All you're gonna need are just some pretty basic hand tools, common hand tools. We found that today that most people, most motorcycle owners are working on their own bikes. So odds are you're gonna have the majority of this stuff in your possession. Please note that as I'm tightening each one of these fasteners, I am not tightening them down all the way until I have snugged each one just a little bit. Want a nice even pull here, right? Anytime you have something that's held on with multiple fasteners, right? Snug each one first, basically finger tight, and then go around and then tighten each one of them down the rest of the way. Good even pull, make sure there's nothing binding, no wires or lines have gotten caught in between the throttle bodies and the lower airbox. Okay, we've got the lower airbox, it's on and secured. We still got to put the hose on it. We're going to go ahead now and install the upper airbox cover. Make sure your air filter goes in the slot on this particular bike. Get that lined up, it'll drop right in. We're going to go ahead and put the screws in, and we've got a couple of electrical connectors that we need to plug in as well. Okay, I've got the upper airbox cover on. All fasteners are tight. I've got the fuel line on. The electrical connector for both the lower airbox and the upper airbox are connected. The crank breather hose is connected to the airbox. Everything's good to go. Now we're ready to grab our fuel tank and put that back on. All right, there you go. Tank is on, tail is on, everything's buttoned up. We're ready for another weekend of fun. These are going to make a difference in the performance of the motorcycle for sure, especially when I use this self-mapping feature on the Pizzazz, which I intend to do every weekend I take this bike out because it's really easy to do. When we get back, we're also going to have a video on exactly what it takes to do that. Remember, before I go, I'm going to start this bike, I'm going to run it and make sure I haven't made any mistakes and everything's turned out exactly as it should, because I don't want to get to the racetrack and find out that I did something wrong when I installed the block-off plates. I'd rather find out now than at the track.